You ever just start watching an anime and then get to the ending and you get this crappy half-ass wrap-up like the show just ran out of budget? There's no conclusion whatsoever, but for some reason, the studio never came back to it to finish the job, so you're left wondering how the whole thing is supposed to turn out. More often than not, you have to resort going back to the source material, and today, this is the top 10 anime that got brutally cancelled halfway through their life cycle. My name is Misty Chronexia, and if you ever saw any of those shows, you can rest easy in knowing you can find the remaining of the story in their manga counterpart. Sort of. But first, I must tell you about today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legend. You've heard of them before, from a slew of people. Raid is a hero collector mobile game that I started playing for my gacha video I did a few episodes ago, and I gave it a fair shake. Look at all these waifus I've collected. Waifus exclusively. If you don't got titty, you get sacrificed for the matriarchal cult. That's how it goes. The game is chock full of events and things to do. You got the main campaign that has voice acting.
If I can hit it just right.
Dungeon, battle arenas against the other player's team, and summon, which, like I said, I played a bunch of gacha game. This one is fairly generous for the free-to-play users. You get rewards for clearing challenges, which lets you build up your unit, which lets you do more quests, and then that gives you currency to get better units, and it's endless. It's got a medieval fantasy theme, stunning graphics, and finally, has a client launcher on PC, so you don't have to stop playing the game to recharge your phone. Join the adventure right now, and you can get 50,000 silver, 50 gems, 5 mystery shards, and a rare champion called Hex Weaver in your treasure box. There's a brand new update coming up in September that's going to tweak and balance a lot of champions to make the PvP more competitive, and the Forge that will allow you to craft top quality artifacts. Click the link in the description, and now let's get to this list. Number 10, High School of the Dead. Starting out with this one, this is actually quite tragic. Initially, High School of the Dead, as the title implies, is a zombie apocalypse type of event that mixes action and eroticism in the best combo possible. Lots of people enjoyed this title, but it abruptly meets an end while the cast is far from being rescued. So what happens next? Do they survive? Do they find what caused the outbreak? Well, if you turn to the manga, you will find that the story does actually go on for a little bit more before, well, it stops again. See, the story was created by a duo team, one that was working on the story and the other one was doing the art, and sadly, Sato Daisuke, the story writer, passed away while he was working on High School of the Dead. So while you can still get a bit more progression done in the manga, eventually you get caught up to the same point where everyone is, and the artists also refuse to continue the story in the sake of preserving their friendship beyond death. It's just how it goes on that one. Number 9, Fruits Basket. Fruits Basket is another peculiar case. Originally, the anime came out in 2001, but if you take a look at the lasting time of the manga, you realize that by that time they wrapped up the anime. The story kept going for an additional 5 years, so you can guess that they never got the true ending of the story. Thankfully, in this case, in 2019, they rebooted the show, so if you ever watched the original anime and ended up disappointed in the way things turned out, you can have some salvation in picking up the manga or just watching the new anime they made. Although, for full disclosure, it is still ongoing at the time I'm doing this script, and who's to say if there's gonna be a 3rd season or a 4th one? It is beyond the scope of my powers. Number 8, Kimi Todoke. Oh man, nothing like binging 30 plus episodes of a romantic anime to end up not even getting a kiss? Less even the satisfaction to know they actually did the nasty under the sheets, which is why you have to resort going back to the manga if you want to seal the deal. Unless you're fine with settling down for a confession and some hand holding. But personally, I'm not 8 years old anymore, so if you could give me something, anything, that'd be poggers. Make it implicit, I don't care. As a viewer, I just want the satisfaction to metaphysically fist bump my man for tapping the girl from the ring. That's all I want out of this series. Anyway, let me move on to something else before I upset even more of my meager female audience. Number 7, shonen in general, but more precisely stuff like Hitman Reborn, Bleach, or Beelzebub. The tragedy of the unfinished shonen. Here's how it goes. Manga does okay-ish, anime gets made, anime starts dropping in rating, anime gets cancelled. No one gets to know about the manga anymore because A, no one know where to transition to, and B, readers start losing interest because anime got cancelled. So less reader, manga gets shut down a few arcs down the road. Meet your fellow victims. Hitman Reborn ran for 200 plus episodes, got shticks. Manga ended an arc after. Beelzebub, same deal, kind-ish. You can also probably toss in Rurouni Kenshin in this melting pot, and then you got Bleach. Then again, Bleach kind of shot itself in the foot with the entire post-Aizen era. Yeah, the last arc was cool, but I'll just never stand the Fullbringer set. You know you got a problem with an arc when even the fandom is like, yeah, no, that never happened. Number 6! Nana! I think Nana is one of the most infamous story of getting an anime running up to a certain point where the anime catch up to the release content, so instead of making fillers, they call it quit. I think this is the worst sentence I have ever wrote in my entire life. What the fuck was I smoking? Alright, so let me try that one again without all the cocaine I've apparently took when I wrote the first time. Number 6! Nana! I think Nana is one of the most infamous story of the anime catching up to all the release content. Instead of making fillers, they call it quits. There you go, that makes more sense. The story does carry on in a manga, but unfortunately the author Ayazawa ended up getting quite sick in 2009, which forced her to undergo treatment for about a year or so. Eventually she did come out of the treatment, but it's been a decade since, and the hiatus hasn't been picked up on. It's hard to say if it ever will, which is a shame because I do believe Nana is one of the magnum opus ever made in the terms of shoujo. A story about two girls moving in an apartment together and whilst also sharing the same name. If you'd like to know more about the story, you can always get a bit further reading the book instead, but you'll reach a point where it never gets an ending regardless.
私もナナって言うんだ。ナナちゃん。そちらは何をおかけになるので? Number
5! No Game, No Life. There's been a lot of controversy on this one. If you've watched the anime, you probably got to the end and went like, what gives? This show is super hype, why isn't there more? Well, the problem lies with the author of the manga/light novel who had accusation of plagiarism tossed on him a couple of years ago. Apparently, he was caught tracing poses and angle for characters like Stefani, Jibril, and Izuna from other artwork, which in the industry is just a big no-no. He eventually apologized towards the people involved and cleared up his name, was allowed to continue the series as a manga and a light novel, but it's hard to say if the anime ever gonna come out of that tarnished shadow. I think it's mostly investors who don't want to be associated with this, which is rather unfortunate, but if you'd like to know more of the story, it's well worth picking up its paperweight counterpart. Number 4, Deadman Wonderland. I don't think there's a greater cockblock than Deadman Wonderland. This anime leaves you at the end of season 1 with a massive cliffhangers, and then you're like, well, I guess this is my life now. It never got a sequel because the show flunked in Japan and then the company who made it went bankrupt, so it's an additional nail in that coffin. Try of getting a reboot, you'll never get to see what happens. Unless you pick up a fucking book, you nerd. What I'm saying is the series got an actual ending in a manga. Story about a kid who gets falsely imprisoned, framed for murdering his entire classroom, and the prison is a giant coliseum where the inmates are forced to play a sadistic game where they either die or live long enough to play another game. It's really dope if you like survival shows. Number 3, Batum. This is one you should watch on the simple account of being allowed to say the name out loud to your friends. Oh, what did you watch last night? I just started this new show called Batum. Batum? What is it about? No, shut your whore mouth. You're not allowed to say this. You're not in the club yet. You get to call it, I don't know, Craig. Anyway, it turns out this was a really stupid bit. Anyway, it turns out there was a really cool anime for it, and when the time came for season 2, well, it just didn't sell enough, so they made a petition asking if people wanted a season 2, well, it just didn't get enough signatures, so fuck it, and just read the story of Craig. It's fucking great. Also, the manga of Tomb has 2 possible canon ending, which I think is a really cool pick-your-own-adventure kind of way to end up a show. Number 2, Gantz. It is so much day and night when it comes down to compare Gantz as an anime to its manga counterpart. First off, they both ran concurrently, and just like many, they usually reach a point where they catch up to all available material, and what do they have to resort to? Doing fillers. Kind of a bummer when you set yourself up for 25 episodes, and by the time you reach episode 14, you run out of source material, which led the rest of the anime to come up with a brand new arc altogether. But if you had any interest in the first portion of the anime, I think it would be a severe crime to not look up the source material for this one. It's probably one of my favorite manga I've ever read. And finally, number 1, Berserk / Claymore. I think there's not one greater story of the anime never could encompass this masterpiece that is in the manga of Berserk. The anime first got a shot in 97, 98, but that got put on the ice for a decade or so before they came back a few arcs later and then switched up to 3D. I think it's fair to say nothing lives up to actually reading the book for this one, but considering the epopee it is, you're better off enjoying the trip than seeking the destination. Also, if Berserk was too obvious of a number 1 answer, I also recommend Claymore. Although unrelated, I always compare Claymore as the little sister to Berserk. They both have similar theme of medieval knighthood with a dark fantasy spin on it. They both got an anime that ended way before the manga did, and if you like one, you're very likely to enjoy the other one too. So if you ever finished an anime and feel like it left you hanging and you're wondering what happens next, but you can't be bothered to wait another year for maybe a potential sequel, consider picking up the manga instead. Unless it's an original TV show, in which case you are flat out F in the A. Stands for Furniture in the Attic. Once again, I must remind you to check out our sponsor for this video, Raid Shadow Legends. The more people use my link, the more money I can earn. Oh, by the way, there's a cool widget in the description of this video where you can also track our progress of how many people use the link in real time. It will also show your name too when you join the campaign. So if you never could afford to support my channel monetarily, but always wanted to help and you have some time on your hand, try out the game. It's free to play. Worst case scenario, you'll have given it a good shake. If you like this video, do the right thing, kid. Click the like button. Sign up for a lifetime subscription. And while you're already 1 feet in, hit that bell. Thanks a bunch. I'll see you in the next one. Or I won't, cause you're busy and I'm a generally understanding person. Unless you're purposefully avoiding me, in which case I think that speaks more about your character than mine. So next time we see each other, let's do that upward nod guys do when they see each other in the streets. Not the downward nod. No, that doesn't mean the same thing. Alright, bye now!
Hard times, I've been on the wrong side, I've been ashamed. So many memories, you know I'd like to change.